You think you've seen pretty much everything at WrestleMania, right?
Yeah.
Especially with a legend like Randy Orton hitting his 20th appearance.
Yeah, huge milestone.
We were all geared up for Orton versus Kevin Owens, and then bam, the news drops. Owens is out, neck injury, needs surgery.
Awful timing for KO.
Totally. So Orton's left without an opponent. What happens next? An open challenge.
Okay.
But the answer, well, that was the real shocker. Joe Hendry, the TNA World Champion.
Absolute. Nobody saw that coming.
Right.
And that's what we're diving into today. We want to unpack this whole thing. How did this bizarre matchup even happen? What went down in the ring?
And the fallout,
Yeah.
right? What did it mean for everyone involved?
Exactly. The ripple effects, the whole picture.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Orton's in the ring, WrestleMania, celebrating 2 decades. He grabs the mic, says he's ready to fight, issues the open challenge. The crowd must have been buzzing. Who were people even guessing might walk out?
Oh, yeah. The speculation machine went into overdrive. Online. You heard names like Aleister Black, maybe? Miro?
Interesting choices. Guys with some history, some edge.
Right. People who could believably step up to Orton. The assumption was, someone already in the WWE system, probably.
And then the music hits. But it's not Black, not Miro. It's Joe Hendry's theme. The TNA champion himself walks out. What was that like? The reaction?
You could almost hear jaws dropping through the commentary. Just genuine shock. Like, wait, is that?
Yeah, I bet.
Hendry comes out, does his whole entrance routine, the spin, everything. The crowd seemed, well, surprised, but kind of into it, too. Definitely a jolt of energy.
The TNA World Champion. All the way from Edinburgh, Scotland. 252 pounds.
Now, Hendry, he's not totally unknown to WWE fans, is he?
No, not completely. Especially if you follow things wider than just WWE. He had that viral song, remember? Super catchy.
Oh, yeah. I believe in Joe Hendry. You couldn't escape it for a while there.
Right. And he actually had a pretty decent reaction at the Royal Rumble earlier this year, too. People knew who he was.
And he popped up in NXT late last year for a bit, didn't he?
He did, yeah. So there's some history there. Plus, he's not some rookie. We're talking over 15 years in the business. Decorated amateur background, too. He's legit.
Meltzer actually noted that, too. Said the crowd went crazy singing his song when he came out. So there was definite recognition there.
So when a champ from another big company walks out, the first thing you think is title match? I heard Pat McAfee on commentary wondered the same thing.
He did, yeah. McAfee immediately asked if the TNA title was on the line. Imagine that. Champion versus champion.
That'd been nuts.
But Michael Cole jumped in pretty quick to clarify, nope, TNA title not on the line. This was purely about Hendry answering Orton's challenge for his big 20th Mania match.
Okay, so less about promotion versus promotion, more of a special moment.
Exactly. Framing it that way was probably important.
All right, so the bell rings.
Yeah.
TNA champ versus WWE legend, WrestleMania. How did the match actually play out? Did Hendry get a chance to show his stuff?
He actually started strong, got a quick roll-up attempt, almost caught Orton right away.
Oh, wow.
Then a shoulder tackle that knocked Orton down, followed by a neck breaker. He even took a moment, played to the crowd, did his pose. You could tell he was soaking it in, not intimidated.
That's huge for him personally. Gotta be. But it's Randy Orton. He wasn't going to stay on the defensive for long, I imagine.
No, you know Orton. He turned around pretty quick. Short arm reversal, then a classic Orton move, the Greco-Roman eye poke.
Vintage Orton.
Right. Then a couple of clotheslines, power slam, and you know what comes next. The draping DDT. That whole sequence felt like Orton saying, okay, playtime's over.
The DDT. That's usually the setup for the RKO, isn't it? Did Hendry see it coming? Could he counter it?
He did, the first time anyway. He actually blocked the RKO attempt.
No way.
Yeah, the commentators were surprised too. And then Hendry hoisted him up, hit a big fall-away slam, showed off some power, got right back up, hit the pose again, really trying to make his mark.
You got some good moments in that.
Yeah.
But you just knew it was coming eventually. The RKO.
Yeah, unfortunately for Joe Hendry, you just can't escape it forever. Classic, Orton style, RKO out of nowhere. And that was it. Pinfall. 1, 2, 3.
How long did the match actually last?
About 3 minutes, give or take.
3 minutes. Wow, okay. Yeah, I can see why some fans were calling it a glorified squash. That feels short, especially for a world champion at WrestleMania.
It definitely kicked off a bait, didn't it?
Yeah.
Good booking or bad. On one hand, TNA gets its champion on the biggest stage imaginable, massive exposure.
Right, eyeballs.
But on the other hand, does losing that quickly, that decisively, make TNA look, I don't know, second tier compared to WWE or even NXT? It's a tricky balance.
So the match is over. Orton wins. What happens right after the bell? Did they shake hands? Was it respectful?
Initially, yes. It looked like a really classy moment. Orton helped Hendry up. They shook hands. Orton even raised Hendry's arm. Like, good fight. Welcome to the big stage. A real show of respect.
Okay, nice. A good sport. That
Hey.
feels right for a milestone match like Orton's. But knowing Orton, I feel like there's a but coming.
You feel right. Just as you thought it was over, Orton spins him around. Second RKO.
Yep. Out of absolutely nowhere again. Out cold.
Ouch.
Yep. And then, to add insult to injury, Orton does this mocking imitation of Hendry's spin-around pose over him.
Oh, man. That changes the whole vibe, doesn't it? From respect to, well, dominance. What did the commentators make of that twist?
They were kind of split, actually. You heard discussion about, the short match time and then the post-match stuff. Was the second RKO and the taunt necessary? Was it a bit much after the handshake?
Others kind of saw it as Orton just emphatically putting his stamp on his night, making sure there was zero doubt who the star was on his 20th WrestleMania. Reasserting the pecking order, maybe?
So that brings us back to the big question. Was this whole thing ultimately good for TNA, or did it kind of backfire? What message does it send about how WWE views them, perhaps? And this is where Meltzer's analysis really kicks in.
Because back in the day, that would be seen as just burying the other guy and the whole promotion.
Totally. Having another company's world champion lose that fast and then take another finisher? Unthinkable in, the Monday Night Wars era.
But Meltzer points out things are different now. Wins, losses, titles. Maybe they don't mean quite the same thing in the grand scheme of interpromotional stuff.
It's a weird line, though. Did Hendry gain anything just by being on the Mania stage? Massive exposure, sure.
Or did he just look completely non-competitive against a top WWE guy? That's the debate, isn't it?
And Meltzer brings up the perception issue, too. That maybe TNA is viewed internally or by some fans as, a third-rate promotion.
Oof. Harsh, but maybe reflects a certain reality in terms of scale and perception.
So their champion, by extension, isn't seen on the same level, maybe NXT level, Meltzer suggested.
Which makes the quick loss, and especially that second RKO, seem, less surprising from that viewpoint, maybe even expected.
And that's where the controversy comes from, right? That WWE basically devalued TNA's top title and champion on purpose.
Well, Meltzer heard that from the WWE side, the plan was always a quick Orton win via RKO. That was told ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
So they needed someone for that spot.
Yeah.
And instead of maybe debuting a new NXT guy and having him lose fast.
They used Hendry, a non-contracted guy, as surprise element.
Exactly. And apparently the plan for Orton versus Cena at Backlash was already in motion, so this quick win fit that narrative for Orton.
There was also that detail Meltzer mentioned. Orton was given a list of potential opponents.
Yeah. And he apparently chose Hendry.
Huh. Wonder why. Maybe he liked the song.
Huh. Maybe. Or maybe he just felt Hendry was the right fit for that specific role, that quick match.
Meltzer did offer an alternative booking idea, though, didn't he?
He did. Orton wins fast, okay, fine. But then maybe some heels interfere.
Okay.
Orton RKO's one, Hendry takes out the other one, maybe gets a bit of shine back. Then Orton gives him the nod of respect.
So Hendry still loses, but he looks way more credible. A threat, even after the loss.
Right. But that second RKO, Meltzer's conclusion was pretty blunt. He said it made Hendry look like a WWE prelim guy or below.
Well, yeah, that's rough for the TNA champion.
You can argue the exposure was priceless. Millions saw the TNA champion who might never watch TNA otherwise. Huge win in that sense.
True.
But others would say, yeah, they saw him get beat in 3 minutes and then kind of clowned afterwards. Does that help the perception of TNA as a competitive alternative? Maybe not. Even Cole's initial shock, I can't believe it's Joe Hendry, kind of underlines that surprise, the unexpectedness of a TNA guy being there.
Interesting point. Okay, let's go backstage. What happened after the cameras went off? Did Hendry say anything?
He did, yeah. There was a digital exclusive interview. And what he focused on was actually the crowd reaction. He said he was surprised and thankful for how positive the fans were towards him.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he even joked about using his spin more because the crowd seemed to like it. So he was definitely looking for the positives, focusing on that connection.
Good for him. What about how this all came together? A TNA champion showing up at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
That doesn't just happen. How secret was it?
Oh, incredibly secret. Reports suggest talks started quietly between WWE and TNA right after KO got injured, but they kept it under wraps like crazy.
Like really tight.
Super tight. Apparently, Hendry's name wasn't even on the internal WWE run sheets for the show. That tells you how badly they wanted it to be a genuine surprise.
Wow. So this wasn't something planned for ages Was there any prior WWE interest in Hendry?
There seems to have been, yeah. Some sources say WWE had liked him for a while. There was even talk, apparently, of him doing a Raw appearance once when they were in Glasgow.
Oh, really? What happened?
Well, the story goes that a TNA executive at the time vetoed it. Didn't want Hendry potentially taking a loss on WWE TV. Some whisper that might have even played into that exec eventually leaving TNA.
Huh. So TNA wasn't always keen on this sort of thing. Makes the WrestleMania appearance even more significant. What was the feeling inside TNA this time around, letting their champ go potentially lose on WWE's biggest show?
Seems like the thinking shifted. Reports suggest the mood inside TNA was actually pretty positive about it this time. The feeling was that the sheer visibility, the eyeballs on the brand at WrestleMania, that benefit outweighed the risk of the loss. A huge opportunity, basically.
That's a very business-minded way to look at it.
Yeah.
Did Hendry himself comment on the squash match talk?
He did. He pushed back on that label in an interview, I think, on SiriusXM. He argued, look, he got offense in, he had moments. It wasn't like he got completely steamrolled instantly.
Fair enough.
He even compared it to, like, John Cena losing quickly at a WrestleMania once.
Right.
Saying a short match against a top guy doesn't automatically mean you're, nothing.
Didn't he frame his whole role as TNA champion in a specific way? Like beyond just wins and losses?
Exactly. He talked about how his focus as champion is on the business of TNA, about getting as many eyeballs on TNA wrestling as possible. He clearly saw WrestleMania through that lens, a strategic move for the whole company.
Smart perspective.
Yeah.
And wasn't there some advice he got backstage from a pretty big name? CM Punk.
That's right. Hendry mentioned Punk pulled him aside afterwards, and Punk apparently told him that's exactly how it should have gone.
Wow, really?
Yeah, Punk felt a longer match might not have actually helped Hendry as much, in that, hey, there's no shame in taking an RKO and losing to a legend like Randy Orton at WrestleMania. That's got to be validating, hearing that from Punk.
Definitely valuable perspective. So it sounds like the main goal really was just creating that WrestleMania moment, not necessarily a competitive epic. Were any other names floated for Orton's opponent?
There was at least one other name mentioned in reports, Jeff Hardy.
Another TNA guy with huge name recognition.
Exactly. So WWE apparently considered Hardy too, but obviously went with Hendry in the end.
Interesting. So they were definitely looking towards TNA for that surprise factor. It really highlights that they didn't have a plan B ready from their own roster once Owens went down.
Seems that way. The priority became creating buzz, a moment people would talk about, rather than trying to build a quick story for someone else.
And speaking of buzz, they even got Hendry merch up on the WWE shop site pretty fast, didn't they?
They did. A t-shirt and hoodie popped up right after his appearance. Shows they were ready to capitalize on that sudden spotlight, even if just for a short time. Quick work.
Okay, so let's boil this all down. We've covered a lot of ground. What are the key takeaways from this whole very unexpected situation? What should listeners really take away?
Well, first, just the shock value, right?
Yeah.
The TNA champ facing Orton at Mania proves wrestling can still deliver genuine surprises, and cross-promotional stuff gets people talking.
Definitely.
Second, the debate around the booking. Was it smart exposure for TNA, or did the quick loss hurt their champ's credibility? It shows how tricky these collaborations can be. There are different ways to look at it.
For sure.
Third, regardless of how you felt about the match, Joe Hendry got himself noticed on a massive stage. That's got to be good for him, and potentially TNA, long-term.
Yeah, huge exposure.
And finally, it just reinforces that WrestleMania is about creating those big, memorable moments. Sometimes that means pulling a rabbit out of a hat, even if that rabbit is the TNA World Champion.